And welcome back to another episode of the Million Dollar Coach podcast, joined by Ash. Sam is still off taking care of nappies and nap time and new baby stuff for a couple of weeks. But I think we've got a pretty good, not going to say replacement, but substitute off the bench into the hot seat is the one and only Miss Cristina Anderson. How are you, guys?
Good. I'm honored to take the place of Sam for a day.
Yeah. We'll tell him that as well. It'll be fine. So thought it was a great chance to have you on, Cristina. I know that we've talked to you a couple of times on the Fit Affiliate podcast, and you've been on a couple of other podcasts about your particular coaching journey. And congratulations, recently got your level 4, which is a huge achievement, particularly in the time frame that you've done it in your lifespan of coaching, which is less than 3 years, which is impressive to say the least. But I think it's also reflective of your commitment to ongoing development and learning. There's a lot of coaches in the space who've coached for 10 years and all they've done is done their level 1 3 times, right, or at most done their level 2. So you've clearly stepped into coaching from day dot and wanted to make it a professional career, which is kind of the angle we want to talk about today, which is something a little different. Is like one of the mindset mandates we have in the course is partnering. And I think that that's something you've done really well in seeking out mentors and people that, can help you and you can learn and grow from. So a few things to touch on there. But I guess we'll kick off with, just a little bit of insight from you about, you started, we know that you started CrossFit, a long time ago and then dropped out of it, bad experiences, got back and decided to do your level 1. What from the moment of doing that, I guess, is where we'll pick up your story, is you decided, well, I'm compelled to be a coach and I want to make it my full-time jam.
Yeah, I mean, I think, for me, like coming back from that negative experience, the first thing that I did was take my level 1. Well, after getting back into the gym, right? So like I had gotten back to the gym, I was, had my feet on the ground. And so I kind of felt like taking my level 1 was going to be the last piece of that healing journey from, coming back from just having not a great experience. And so, because I hadn't really shaken it. I still was kind of struggling. And so I was like, no, I think I need to take my level 1. And I just remember like it just lined up so it was just poetic. Like I looked up level 1s and there just so happened to be one in the neighboring city that was less than an hour drive. And it was less than 2 weeks away, or it was exactly 2 weeks away. And I remember there was like a little like disclaimer that was like, hey, like sign up today or there's going to be a, late sign up fee of $250. So I was like, well, I have to sign up because I don't want to pay another $250. And so it was just kind of right. Exactly. So I signed up. It just seemed like perfect timing. I went for it. But I I'm this kind of person. Like I was the one who like got the manual, printed it out. I read it twice in that 2 weeks leading up to the level 1. It did stem from my insecurity, right? Like I truly believe that I didn't belong in that room. I felt that like as a woman in a larger body at the time, I weighed, a little over 300 pounds. I was like just starting my weight loss journey. And I didn't feel like I belonged there. So I figured if I read this manual twice, then I'm going to belong there. And so, I was just like very over prepared and I walked in and, those same feelings kind of came over me of like, okay, everybody else here is ridiculously fit. Nobody looks like me. I don't belong here. And then, I went up and I sat in the front row because again, I was trying to prove that I, belonged there and that I deserved to be there. And then I remember that Austin Malleolo walked up and he said, welcome to your CrossFit level 1. I'm Austin Malleolo. And I of course recognized him and I knew that he was a CrossFit Games athlete. And my heart sank. I was like, I can't be here. Like I don't deserve to be here in this room with him and like all these people, and like, but I couldn't move. There was no option for me to leave. So I stayed, and I'm very glad that I did, because specifically the way that he treated me, it was life changing. And I decided at that level 1 seminar that I was going to wear a red shirt someday because of how wonderful that he was to me. And he showed me that just because somebody is incredibly fit doesn't mean that, that I'm not worthy to, learn from them or be in the same room as them. Like he showed me that he didn't care what I look like. And I was like, I need to like coach more people so that I can show people that like it's okay to try CrossFit, and it's okay to struggle, and it's okay to be scared, and I knew I needed to do that with my life.
And it's amazing. You've kind of had two really important instances which, had you chosen the path to just go like your bad experience at your first time CrossFit, and then choosing to stay at your level 1, had you just even at that first iteration of CrossFit and just decided this is not for me and never come back, but then you still made the decision to come back and try again, and then to go all in and get your level 1, but also then to keep your seat at the table, stay at the level 1, where you could have just gone, oh, I'm really sick, and gone home, which anyone, a lot of people may have chosen, but you chose to do the more difficult path.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? And I think that's a credit, and probably what stood you in good stead for having some determination in your journey, because we know, and I'm sure Ash will attest, it's not a linear progress once you start. Well, I've got this shiny new level 1. It's like life just laid out for me in golden pavers now. And correct me if I'm wrong, prior to your level 1, you'd had zero coaching experience in an affiliate.
Correct. Yeah, yep. 0.
Awesome.
So what did you do once you got your level 1? What was your mindset like leaving that?
I have to do this. It was just like, prior to that, I think the kind of 7 years that I spent away from CrossFit, I spent in a really, truly dark place in my life. And I think when I took my level 1, I was like, oh my God, this is it. Like, this is the reason for all of it. This is what I'm supposed to do. I have a purpose. I just knew in my core that this was the thing that I'd been searching for, because I'd been looking for such a long time for some, like having identity crisis. And, I knew that I found the thing. And so I knew that I had to go after it head first, like no looking back. And, I just knew, like, I just knew in my heart. It's hard to explain how. I just knew.
Well, I think we all kind of can relate to that feeling of like, sometimes you just know and you can't really explain it. And that's what that's kind of what gives you the ability to take that leap of faith, right? That's why it's called a leap of faith. But you had talked about how Austin really like drew you in. So did you utilize Austin then after your level 1 to help you move forward?
Yeah. So right after my level 1 was when the world kind of shut down for COVID. And so I remember being like, okay, well, it's very on brand for me to like not want to bother people, especially somebody like him who is important and fit and more important than me. And so but like nobody was doing anything, right? So it was like I remember being like, well, whatever, I'm just going to email him because we're all just stuck at home. And so when I emailed him, I basically, at first I expressed immense gratitude for just like how amazing the seminar was. But I said, I know that this is what I want to do. And I said, I don't think I can do it here. You know, I think there were a lot of reasons for that. You know, obviously I still had, you know, within the CrossFit community where I'm from was still, you know, the remnants of the bad experience that I had. And it just felt like I couldn't truly blossom in that area. And so I told him so I told him I would go wherever I needed to go to make this happen. And all he said to me was, if you were in the Boston area, I would do whatever I can to help you. And that was it. And so quite literally, like a week later, my house was up for sale. I was like getting ready to just like see what happens. And like, again, it was just like so poetic, like one thing after the other. It, you know, we put the house up for sale. We got an offer like well above asking price that made like a very significant amount of profit from what we paid for it. And it just all aligned. It just like was like, okay, well, I guess we're going. And then I found an apartment, and then I found, you know, it just like everything just worked easily. Like it just felt right. And so,
where were you? How far was your move?
So I'm from Buffalo, New York, and I moved to near Boston. So it's like, I mean, it's a good 400, 500 miles, I think. Across a couple states.
It's interesting, and I was just reflecting on, you know, the numerous, you know, L1, L2, and numerous specialty seminars I've been on, and you know, there's always a point in there where the seminar lead, the flow master, will put their email on the board and say, hey, if I can do anything for you, you know, if you have questions, reach out to me. Here's my email, you know. And I would hazard a guess that the amount they actually get emailed would be very small. And you know, they've freely put themselves out there as a resource. Like, if you have questions, if there's something I can do for you, here's how you reach out for me. And not just the generic seminars, but their actual email. And I think, and to have someone reach out with, you know, a genuine desire rather than just, hey, can you give me the answer to this? Or how do I, you know,
how do I do
get
next?
a job? Yeah, how do I do? Wanting to know the way forward. But, you know, you've reached out and said, you know, I really am compelled to do this. I want to do this. Like, how do I, you know, and you've used that resource, which is, you know, something like we talk about having on the Fit Affiliate podcast, and on this, you will have heard us talk a million times over about having a why and having a strong why. And, you know, you discovered that through, like, I just have to help people understand that, you know, that this is a powerful tool, and I need to coach them, give them the same experience. And then, you know, you've taken the next powerful step is asking for help, and also identifying and using a resource which is freely offered, and then creating an opportunity and seizing the opportunity. We talked to Pat Barber a few weeks ago, and, you know, he just created opportunity after opportunity and was prepared to say yes to things. So when Austin's like, oh, well, you know, if you're in Boston, I'd do whatever I can to help you. You're like, okay, well, I'm going to Boston. It's like you created your own opportunity out of that.
Yeah.
And so when you got to Boston, what sort of the path then is, were you then reluctant to reach out again and go, hey, it's your email buddy? Or did you, you know, what was kind of the way that you thought about, well, how do I go forward now? I'm in this city. Like, what do I do?
Yeah. I actually, so I definitely reached out to him again just to tell him, like, hey, I'm here. I mean, and believe we shared a couple emails in the process. I didn't just show up in Boston. Although I kind of did, but we did communicate a little bit here and there. But I very adamantly, like, I didn't want to reach out and be like, okay, I'm here. Now what? I really just like wanted to make sure that I was doing it on my own. And maybe that was like a pride thing, or like, again, I absolutely hate the thought of being any type of burden. So that's definitely a thing that I struggle with, is asking for help. But I figured, hey, I'm here. I'm just going to show up at his gym. And at the time, he was a co-owner of CrossFit One Nation. So I showed up there and I was like, hi, I want to be a coach. And actually, the first time I showed up there, I was not turned away, but they were very apprehensive because it was COVID, and they were apprehensive about, kind of taking on an intern at that time. But I knew in my heart, I was like, I need to go find James Hobart. So James Hobart also owned the gym with Austin, who I knew of. And the gentleman that I met, I had never heard of him before, but he was, the apprehensive one. But I knew that if I went to the Boston location and found James Hobart, that it would be okay. I don't know why. I just knew it. And so I drove into the city. I drove into Boston, and I went to One Nation Boston, which now is known as CrossFit Boston. And so I walk in and I took a deep breath. I remember this so vividly, and I'm actually super excited because I haven't shared this story in a long time, but I took a deep breath and I was like, okay, you can do this. And I get out of the car, and James Hobart runs out of the gym having just finished a workout and just like collapses on the ground. Like post workout, like literally like dying on the floor, classic CrossFit, like elite athlete, like, and I don't know what came over me, but I didn't even give him a second. I walked right up to him and I said, hi, I'm Cristina Anderson, and I'm so excited to meet you. And he just kind of got up and he was like, hi, Cristina Anderson. But like, he was so nice. And so I just like, I was like, I'm sorry, like, please just, take a couple breaths. Like, sorry that I just did that. I don't know what came over me, but I explained myself, and I just said, like, listen, I just moved here, and like, I'm here because I'm under the impression that this is one of the best gyms in the area, and I want to be a coach, and like, I just really want to make it happen. And I was hoping you can help me. And he was like, yes, I can help you. Like, absolutely. And so he introduced me to a gentleman, Lachlan. So I met Lachlan. Yes. And so, who also is from Australia, by the way.
Must be a nice person then.
I don't know if you know him, but yes. And so
Australia's pretty big. We don't all just know each other, to say.
Valid. That was funny. That's true. So anyway, I'm just trying to hold my phone closer to the internet, so sorry for the weird angle. But anyway, so I met Lachlan, and he is the guy who was going to run the internships, and he was like, hell yeah, let's go. And so he started me on my internship. But before my internship started, there just so happened to be a level 2 happening that weekend, and I signed up and I did that. So,
damn, girl.
Wow. Most people are not jumping into an L2 until, they've had, a good 6 to 12, 18 months of coaching under their belt. So you may as well learn without having any bad habits, which is great.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, at the time, my mentality was, again, it was COVID, and it was proving to be difficult for me to get an opportunity at a gym. So before I met Lachlan, I was like, well, there's a level 2 happening. Like, at least that's something that I can do to get better. And in the meantime, like, I had, another thing that Austin told me to do was to learn the 9 foundational movements and their points of performance. And so, like, I had been studying on my own. I just hadn't physically been in front of a class coaching people yet. And so I was like, oh, I could take the level 2. I mean, why not? And so, yeah. And so so I took the level 2, and then immediately that following, like the Monday right after my level 2 weekend, I started my internship with Lachlan.
How did you feel leaving the level 2 about coaching, since you had never actually been in front of people and like coaching people? That was kind of your first time, right?
Yeah.
So how did you feel while doing that, and like afterwards and everything?
I definitely had, like, initially had those same kind of emotions like I had before the level 1, where I was like, oh God, like, I don't belong here. And then Denise Thomas was the flow master for that one. And
cool.
I remember she was like, hey, like
all the big names, man.
I know.
She slides them into the conversation.
I'm very lucky. She just said, hey, like, how long has everyone been coaching? And she's like going around the room and people are like, I've been an affiliate owner for 10 years. And I'm like, oh my God, like, what am I doing here? And so, but then it started, and I just remember telling myself, like, okay, like, you clearly don't know anything, so you're here to learn. And so I just shut my mouth and I listened to what, was told of us. And I remember at one point, like, I was coaching, and I remember that Denise was like, what do you see happening in his back or something like that? Maybe she was having me look at midline stabilization or something. And I just remember being like, I don't know. Like, I just openly said, like, I don't know. And she was so encouraging. Like, she just was like, this is great. Like, okay, great. I love your honesty. Here's what we're looking at, X, Y, Z. And then at the end of the weekend, she came to talk to me and was like, do you know that, like, you're incredible? Like, you're just, because I took what she said to do and I did it.
Yeah.
Whereas I didn't have, like Lisa said prior, I didn't have any bad habits. I didn't have any preconceived notions of what coaching looks like. I just literally did what she said to do, and I didn't know anything else. So in a sense, I'm actually grateful that I took it so quickly, because I didn't have any other.
I mean, one of the things with the level 2 people talk about is, oh, you're going to leave your ego at the door. You'll go in thinking you're this, shit hot coach, and you come out feeling like, God, I've never coached a class. Like, you kind of miss that uncomfortable, like, it was very uncomfortable for you going in there, but you miss that whole having to relearn things and unlearn things.
Yeah.
So, that it was, probably a great foundation. So, you had or have or are on an incredible journey. What has been, do you think, the power of the relationships that you cultivated? So you haven't, maybe I'm wrong, but it hasn't struck me that you've just said to considered these people that you've worked with who are, at the pointy tip of the spear when it comes to coaching, like, what can you do for me?
Yeah. No.
You've kind of embraced it as, how can I learn from you? So just talk a little bit about your mindset around that approach versus, what can you do for me, and attaching to personalities to leverage off them, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard, because I feel like my initial answer to that question is that it actually is kind of a flaw of mine, like a personality flaw of that. Like, I don't ever want to ask too much of anyone, so I'm just gonna not. Like, I'm gonna try to figure out something by myself, as painful as it might be, because I don't want to burden you with any of my needs. So that's not necessarily like a good way, I think, to approach. But I also think too that, like, I was so determined to make this into a career where I could actually support my girls, and I could actually, like, buy a house someday, or, like, like, have a future with maybe retirement, like, I just like, I was so adamant that it was going to happen. It's kind of like a stubbornness within me where I'm like, okay, I've set out to do this, and, like, I'm going to do it. And so that's what kind of powers me to reach out when I can, like, when I do get that contact from somebody, hey, I am going to shoot you an email and be like, hey, thanks for that. What do you think of this? But I think that as soon as you, like, as a person, as a human being, as soon as you believe that somebody owes you something, like, you're not going to grow anymore. Like, I just think it's just, like, not, I can't necessarily explain to you why that's my mindset or how that's my mindset. I just believe that. Like, I truly believe that if you are out here thinking that the world owes you something, like, I'm sorry, that's not, you're not going to get very far. And so it just, you have to go out and get things. Like even now that I am, you know, receiving a lot of opportunities, and like passing the level 4 has opened a lot of doors for me, but I still have to walk through them. Like I still have to do the work and get there and do it. Like nobody is like, here, this is this thing for you, and you have it because you're special and you worked hard. Like that's not how it works. And so it just, I don't know, maybe that's just like a harsh truth, but that's just is.
No, but it's true. And you know, a lot of people will tend to go into things going, well, if I do this, then I expect X out of it. Whereas you didn't do your level 4 expecting anything out of that. And I know that from, you know, having the privilege to sit across from you each week as your coach with Fit Affiliate. But, you know, you didn't go to it going, well, I'm going to do my level 4 because, you know, it's going to lead me on the path paved of gold to fame and fortune, and I'm going to be amazing. You did it to make yourself better. Like if there was a level 5, I'm sure you'd be aspiring to that. Like that's just the next step in your progression. So, and a lot of people can fall into the trap of going, okay, well, I want to make, I guess, a lifestyle out of this, but you know, if I do L4, I look at all the other L4s, and this is what it's going to afford me, and then they sit back and wait.
Right.
And I think if you go into it with, you know, any endeavor, not just your L4, but any endeavor, and think, well, from the aspect of, well, what's in it for me, and what's it going to lead to, without thinking, well, what's the work I'm going to have to do to, you know, make the most of that. Like you said, you've had doors open and opportunities present, but at the end of the day, you're still the one that needs to, you know, answer the email, make the phone calls, you know, develop, you know, products and position yourself and put your message out there. Like no one's doing that for you. You don't get your L4 or your L3 and HQ send you a pack and go, okay, now we're going to market you. It's like, that's not.
Yeah.
And I think it's through being, having integrity and being honest and transparent and sharing your story, which you do. So people see what's genuine and real, which is why I think people resonate with you as a coach, because you know, they're like, oh, well, she's just like me. But, you know, I guess my point in my long-winded ramble there is talking to you a little bit about that. How do you then set yourself around deciding what opportunities to take, or how you create opportunities from doors that may have been opened? How do you approach that?
It's a good question. You know, there have been some opportunities along the way that I have turned down, and like in hindsight, it was the right call for sure. And I think that looking back, like truthfully, just really having that connection with, you know, whatever it is that you label it, like you call it the universe, or like your soul, or your heart, or like, you know, your meaning of life, like whatever you look at as this like powerful like presence in your life, that's it. Like I became so in tune with my intuition when I found the fact that I wanted to become a coach. And I think that anytime anything comes up, I kind of look to that piece within myself, and I'm like, no, yep, this has to happen. And I go for it. You know, and then similarly to like, you know, when I sold my house, like, it's like, well, maybe I'll put the house on the market and see what happens. And then like, boom, 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 boom. Everything was like, it just paved the way. Right. This past weekend, I was given the opportunity to go to a development seminar, and it was like 3 days notice. And I was like, well, I'm just going to look at the flights. Boom, boom, boom. And it was fine. Like, and it was like, okay, yep. Like this is something that I have to do. And it ended up being an incredible experience. But tangent on that quickly, when I walked into that room, somebody said to me, at your level, do you still feel like you need to go to seminars like this? And I was like, yeah, like, it's like, it just like, it never, like, I just think like, if if I ever reach that point where I'm like, no, I think I've arrived and like I'm done, like I think that that's the day I would stop coaching, right? Because I just feel like there's always something that you can learn, and there's always something, like, no matter what, that you can take away that's going to help somebody else. And like that's my mentality. So like, yeah, no, I'm going to continue to go to like any seminar that I can, because there's always going to be a different perspective. There's always going to be something else to learn. And that's, I just think, you know, again, like talking about mindset, like if that's not your mindset, I'm not sure how far one can get in life.
And I think that's a powerful framing as well, is that constant desire for improvement. I mean, as CrossFitters, we're always wanting to get the next PR. We're always wanting to acquire the next skill, so it should translate into our professional pursuits as well. How have you adapted or felt about then finding your voice and finding an audience and telling your story? Like, you've always been very good on for those that follow you on Instagram, like, you know, body positivity and owning your stuff, like what you would perceive as your weaknesses, or, you know, where you're lacking. And, you know, I think you've done an amazing job dealing with, you know, trolls and people who have nothing better to do with their time. Like, you handle that in a way that you don't let it shut you down. But how have you found the process then of going, okay, well, I've got these things, this knowledge that I want to pass forward. Like, how do I even go about finding someone who might want to listen to that, that's not necessarily within the four walls of a gym?
It's a good question. I mean, it's the blessing and the curse of social media, right? Because I can contact so many people. I can put something out there that, you know, may speak to people, and they'll reach out to me, and that's great. But that's also at the risk of those trolls also reaching out to me and saying things, which, you know, you never know like what their true intention is. But like, let's just say if the intention is to get me to stop, it actually makes me want to do it more, because I think that I have a responsibility for, you know, if I put a video out there and somebody calls me fat on Instagram, I feel as though I have a responsibility to stand up and combat that for the 12-year-old version of me who read that comment and is, you know, distraught over the fact that somebody online is calling somebody else fat. I didn't think I would get emotional, but that's, I feel like, sorry.
Yeah.
No, it's a big thing.
I feel like that's it's like really, it's just, it's like my job now, right? So it's like I'm sticking up for that little girl that I was, for any other person. I don't care if you're male, female, you know, whatever you identify as. We all have had times in our lives where we feel less than because of our body. I truly believe that. Even if you are the fittest of the fittest fit, we all have struggled with body image in some way. And so I just feel like that's, you know, that's what drives me to keep doing it. As far as, you know, how do I reach the right people? You know, I think that's just, you know, again, I just think that's the universe at work, right? I'm going to put something out there, and if, you know, if somebody is out there really struggling, I would hope that the algorithm or whatever it is would, you know, share my story with them, and then, you know, we can make a connection, and that's, you know.
Well, EC said last week on the podcast that, and it's probably one of the best definitions of, for example, Instagram that I've heard, is that she said, we're all essentially at a really loud concert and everybody's yelling. And then you've got this music happening up here, and you're trying to talk to somebody like next to you. So you've got to talk louder, but how do you get somebody on the other side of the room who goes, they look interesting, and get them to hear that? Because we're all just trying to yell over the top of each other. So, you know, how do we make our messages more relevant, and, you know, how do we make them, you know, more relatable? And I think that comes through the authenticity of, you know, people now have such short attention spans. It's so easy just to go, influencer swipe, swipe, swipe. But when they see something like a real person being real and doing real things, that does give them cause to stop and pause and go, oh, and to listen further, I guess, rather than just the same generic, influencer posts and pointing fingers at text and filtering and, dancing and all the stuff. If you just have a real person talking to you, I think that's something that, and you can feel like they're talking to you. Yeah. I think that's a big step in being able to connect with people and find your people that, there are, I know that we've discussed this in other forums, but there's definitely people who need what you have to share. But if you even rewind all the way back to your very first CrossFit experience, because that was uncomfortable and not ideal, so you went, well, this is hard and uncomfortable, I'm not doing it, and you opted out, then the people who need you don't get to hear you and don't get to even know that you exist. You're going to be, amazing mum Cristina doing, whatever it is that you would have wound up doing at that point, versus you have pushed through and followed through and taken action and created your own opportunities. Mm-hmm. And there are people out there that you don't even know yet, but who, need what you have to say. And I think that being brave enough to continue to do that, despite things not being optimal or perfect. How many people, not attacking Ash, she's going to feel triggered again, but you record a video and you're like, nope, that's not perfect. Oh, that's not right. And you pre-filter and you prejudge yourself, and then you edit it, and then you go, and you never put it out there.
Right.
And then that's kind of then doing a disservice to what we're here to do, which is coach and help and change lives.
Yeah.
So sorry, Ash, I've picked on you about your socials twice now, 2 weeks in a row, but but we all do that. Like, I put up a post the other day about the value of, what defines an authentic coaching relationship. And on my phone, there's like 15 videos. Some went 15 minutes, some went 2 minutes, some till I found like something I felt like was the sweet spot. But I could have just gone, nah, it's not. None of these things are working. I need to, and not put it out there. And yet, 1 or 2 people that might have resonated with don't get to hear that. And I think a lot of coaches who want to make a career in coaching miss that point of, it takes time to build an audience and a platform, and you need to be, as Zach said a couple of weeks ago, consistency. Like every, setting yourself up to do something every day.
Yeah, and EC said the same thing last week too. And you can see, like, EC's page is her Instagram is pretty simple and straightforward, but she's consistent, Yep.
And it's real. It's not like, here's a polished thing of, the macros ate today. I think the other day she did one about
Go Eat Giant, right?
Yeah, how to eat healthily, how to eat well at fast food. Drive right past, and then she had a shopping docket and an orange and a couple of apples, and here's what I got, and here's what I'm going to do. It not like this, it doesn't have to be fancy. You don't have to have these reels where you're chopping food and it's miraculously chopped and it's perfectly presented and it's on lovely white plates and the whole thing. It's like, hey, I needed something on the run today, so I called into here versus here. Here are the things I got, and look, here's where it fits in. So I think that you're being brave is overused, but you keep pushing past the things that would stop a lot of people. What do you think is it that is built in within you that causes you to do that? Is it just having that strong why, that compulsion to coach and help, or is it something that you've done throughout life?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's an important distinction to make, that I am not exempt from those feelings of doubt. Just because I went out and did it, just because I, seemingly seize every opportunity and go after all the things, it is not without, should I do this? I'm not good enough. I suck, blah, blah, blah. all of those feelings that people have, the feelings that stop people, like I have all those same feelings. So I don't want anybody out there to be thinking like, wow, she's just so brave and like doesn't have any anxiety. Trust me, like I have all the feelings in the world. There
all
are
the feels.
many feelings happening here.
We had a Zoom call the other day with all the feels.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, many feels.
We all have them, yeah.
So I think that you know, yeah, I mean, I am a survivor of a lot of childhood trauma, and I've been through a lot in my life. And so when I finally found coaching, I finally found the reason why for all the things. Like it's the reason why I had to suffer through what I did in my life, because now I'm taking it and I'm turning it into something positive. And so I feel like that is like, yeah, so that's my why and that's driving me. But it's also like no fear is worse than those low points that I've hit. And I think we've all hit those low points in life, you know, like they don't always look the same, but at some point, like I think one of my favorite quotes along the way was, you know, it's very cliche, but it's like when the pain of staying the same is worse than the pain of change, that's when you're gonna make a move. And it's like staying the same in my life 3 years ago when I decided to become a coach, staying the same. I honest to God don't know if I would be sitting in this car right now waiting for my girls to get out of daycare talking to the two of you. I'm not sure that you know, would be happening. And so when you get to that point, you know, and not that it has to be that low of a point, but like when you get to a rock bottom point in your life and you find what you're supposed to be doing, there's going to be nothing that can stop you. So I think like for me, like I always tell people, like if you're that like apprehensive to move forward, like maybe you haven't found the thing yet. You know, like maybe you need so maybe you just haven't found your thing yet, and maybe that's what it is, you know, because I think there's another like very cliche phrase that like if you're like stress for something that you're meant to be doing isn't stress, but like if you're, you know, if you're going after something that's not meant for you, it's just like it's not right. It's way more eloquent than that. There is some kind of quote out there, but you know, it's just yeah.
Oh, I mean, we often say around here, you know, the answer to life is found in the cliches, and it's incredibly true. So I guess, and I don't know how comfortable you are sort of delving into this a little bit, but what you're saying is that when you get your level 4, you don't automatically lose all of your self-doubts and fears. And do you want to, are you comfortable to share some of the thoughts you've had around that? Like when you got your L4, did you think things might be different, or how have you felt off and on, I guess, since that? And this is a you know, awesome way to give some transparency to, you know, again, we're not all superheroes.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, I think the fact of the matter is getting my level 4 didn't get me a pull up or a muscle up or a handstand walk. You know, and so I still have to battle every day this idea that like, and you know, and I shared this one with you, Lisa. You know, I got a message, and others like it from somebody on Instagram saying, "Wow, it's really impressive that you got the level 4 because you can't do all the movements." And it was like, it was a compliment, but it like also wasn't, you know. So it was just like very, it's very interesting because the fact of the matter is like, the perceptions that I have and the doubts that I have, other people have those same perceptions, you know. When somebody walks into the gym and they see me, they don't automatically think there's the coach, right? But I have to fight through that and then make it so that as soon as I open my mouth and I start talking about what the class is going to be and what the workout is, people are like, oh, wow, like she's the coach. She definitely knows what she's talking about. But, you know, I don't have the ability to just look the part and perform the movements like one would think that a coach who is a level 4 should. And now I know that that's BS. Like, I know that that's not true, but it's still there, you know? And so, you know, of course, there, like, when I found out that I passed, I was ecstatic, and I threw my phone across the room. Like, I couldn't even contain the emotions that I was feeling. And then, like, you know, not 15, 20 minutes later, it was like, I'm such a fraud, you know? Like, it just, like, I was like, they screwed this up. Like, there's no way. Like, there's no way in hell. Like, but there is, you know? And so, I mean, I have to have that fight, right? I have to think back. I think back to my level 4. I realized that in my level 4, I had to coach a movement that I cannot perform. I had to figure out how to do that. I had to figure it out, and I had no other option. It was either that or what, not complete the test. So it was just like, you know, I don't think I'm allowed to discuss what it was or what I did, but I had to figure it out. And so it just goes to show, like, I was evaluated in that situation by the top evaluators that exist. Chuck Carswell and Nicole Christensen said that it was okay that I didn't demonstrate a movement, but I found a way to do it, right? I found a way to do it within the confines of what I'm able to do. So I think, like, when the doubt comes, because it comes all the time, every day, I think about moments like that. I just think about, you know, the fact that you just have to keep going. That's it.
And I know it's something that we've talked a lot about, is just move faster than fear.
Yeah.
Is take some action. And I know, Ash, that's something we've talked about as well, and we've covered it on this podcast, is like, just take some action, and don't let the fact that everything's not perfect stop you from doing that.
Yep.
So, you know, it's and being mindful that you will still have those feelings, but not letting them stop you as well. You could have gone, oh, I might have passed it and they've given me the thing, but I'm not going to tell anyone. I'm not going to do anything because I feel like it's not right. You put yourself in those uncomfortable situations and put yourself out there, which I think is you know, just a credit to who you are. And again, you're reaching the people that need to hear from you.
Yeah.
And there are lots of people. Super love this chat today, and I love that we've been able to take you down a different path.
Yeah.
In regards to your coaching journey that I guess people don't talk about a lot. We don't talk about, you know, the fears and the doubts and the things that I overcome. I know when I wrote a piece the other day, and I talked about it loosely in the video about, you know, an authentic coaching relationship is that, and one of our bents here at Fit Affiliate is the difference between coaching and training. And we talk, you know, loudly about that. And Tony has said, you know, this is the hill I'm going to die on. This is my thing. And, you know, there's a lot of people bombarding affiliate owners and coaches inbox about how they're going to take them the next step and what they're going to do and what they need. And, you know, they celebrate the metrics as, you know, we've had, you know, we've got 50 affiliate owner clients and they've increased revenue and they've got more members and they've done this, rather than focusing on some of the more intangible stuff. Is like, hey, we've got clients who are overcoming their limiting self-beliefs and their fears, and they're doing, you know, they're putting themselves out into the world and literally changing and saving lives. Or, you know, people are overcoming their PTSD or, you know, just changing their life. I mean, they're probably and achieving freedom, and that's probably, in my mind, that I wrote is more important metrics. And we don't often talk about and we touch on it on this podcast, and we've talked about it on the Fit Affiliate podcast, as having those fears and doubts, but it's not widely discussed, where somebody of any significant level is saying, yeah, look, I still feel like a skin bag of, you know, walking around bullshit that I tell myself and that I don't belong. Like, it's not, people will fill the space with false bravado about, well, I'm an L4 and I know everything and you should listen to me, and it doesn't matter what I say, you should listen to me. So I think it's refreshing to hear it. I'm glad we've been able to bring this to the table today. So thank you.
Thank you
for being prepared to be, you know, a little bit vulnerable and open and honest with this and take a different tact. And we appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys also.
Awesome. And we will see you again. I'm sure we will have you back for more chats because
would
we
love
it already.
to.
And
I promise I'll have internet next time.
maybe don't have to hijack internet, but that's a story for another day.
Right.
And
well,
thank
listen,
you.
I'm making it happen. All right, I'm outside of my kids' daycare right now.
Yeah,
that's
you
how
are
you make it happen.
Making it. You're doing what needs to be done. So I appreciate it. And I know Ash does, and Ash, I look forward to seeing you on the next one as well.
Yes. Thank you, Cristina. It's so
Thank
good to
you.
see you.
I know, you too.